Today's episode, Josh and I are going to break down the first round series of the exciting NBA playoffs so far. And with returns of fans to these stadiums, for the playoffs, we discuss some of the recent inappropriate behavior by said fans. And of course, lastly, it wouldn't be a Two Pointers podcast episode without it. You guessed it, trivia.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Trevor.
And we're glad to have you back again this week as we finally get into kind of the meat of the first round. Every series is about 3 or 4 games in. And we're going to go back over those games and cover where the playoffs look as we look ahead to the conference semifinals. But first, again, if you like this podcast, remember to like and subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you for all of your support, and we hope that you enjoy the episode today. So, Trevor, I think we can roll right in and get started. Kind of where I think it's where we left off last week. I'm not completely sure, but looking into the Utah Jazz and Memphis Grizzlies series. So, since last week when we recorded, Memphis had won Game 1 in surprising takedown of Utah. Utah has won the next 2 games, right kind of as we suspected. Memphis was on a great run, but Utah has seemed to have found their stride. But Game 3 was quite close with the incredible play of Ja Morant. What are your thoughts, Trevor?
Ja Morant's a dog. He's averaging 33 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, and 6 assists this series. Obviously, with this Grizzlies team we talked about in our group chat the other day, just how close or how far away they could actually be in terms of just the talent around Ja Morant. But they're putting up a fight against presumably the best team in the league right now, obviously. The Jazz, of course, missed Donovan Mitchell in that Game 1. And I think the Grizzlies were able to take advantage of that. But this series was just better than we expected. That was, what I really took away so far, and doesn't change the fact that the Jazz are the best defensive team in the West, as well as presumably the best team in total efficiency in the West. Conley has been the key to me, though, however, on the opposite side of the ball, the team that really matters in this series, unfortunately. Sorry to Grizzlies fans. But defensively, Morant's obviously going to get his no matter what, averaging 33, like I said. But Conley on the offensive side of the ball is controlling the movement of the offense, knocking down shots when he needs to, and he's clearly comfortable playing in a building that he played 12 seasons in prior. So, of course, Conley's going to come to play against Memphis in his old stomping ground. So, Conley has been the best player in this series, I think, and it's, regardless of how well Gobert's been playing, averaging 15 rebounds a game and 4 blocks. Conley's been awesome, and he's been my favorite player to watch this series so far.
Yeah, it was, like you said about Conley, it was interesting watching kind of that back and forth battle at the end of Game 3 where Conley and Morant were kind of trading shots on the court, which eventually Utah, who has a better, more all-around versatile offense with all the shooters they have, and the inside presence that Rudy Gobert can have, which is less present on offense, but he runs a great pick and roll and can grab the alley-oop from Conley as he did in crunch time of Game 3. Utah is a little too much, is a little too experienced, and a little too well coached for Memphis to string something together on the back of one of the greatest playoff debut performances I've ever seen from Ja Morant, given this being his first playoff year, and he's absolutely killing it. Great things to come for the Grizzlies, but they're playing a much older, better, and more experienced team.
Oh, no doubt they're going to learn from this. This is going to be a team that you're going to look back in 3 or 4 years when they're fighting for Western Conference Finals position, as well as possibly even finals position. Like we saw those, and I hate to compare this Grizzlies team to the old, grit and grind. Like, it just seems too typical to do that. But they're not the same team, but I'm comparing them in the sense that, we watched these young, when Conley and Gasol and Rudy Gay, when they were younger, OJ Mayo even, before unfortunate things happened to OJ Mayo, we watched them develop and get better each year, and they finally all of a sudden were competing and beating the Clippers in playoff series and beating the Rockets and beating the Warriors. So, however, my biggest takeaway, and I don't want to abuse the word takeaway this episode like we did last week. It was one game we had to use the word takeaway a lot there. But two things that I really noticed that I think are going to matter not only in this series, but moving forward, is that Mitchell seemed very comfortable in his return. So obviously he was well overdue for his return, I think, and regardless of the health situation, game one, pulling him off after warmups, whatever. He seemed comfortable. He was able to get to the line a lot, take contact, hit threes, whatever they needed him to do, had 29, as well as I've said this before, and I'm still going to say this because this series hasn't highlighted what I thought about this point. Gobert, of course, is playing like you need Gobert to play the Defensive Player of the Year. However, Valanciunas is a stereotypical or your prototypical 5, and obviously moving forward, depending on who they play. Which right now, Josh, do you know who would their first round or the second round matchup be?
It's the winner of the Clippers and the Mavericks.
So neither side really having a prototypical 5. They're going to play a lot. So you're going to get to see Gobert and how he's going to play. I'm excited to see how Quinn Snyder is able to adjust to defensively. Obviously, this Jazz team being really good, and Gobert might not be able to play more than about 28 to 30 minutes a game, depending on the matchup against a prototypical 5.
I personally think that in a series where Gobert is not facing your prototypical 5, that he might actually just be able to eat the other team alive on the boards. Valanciunas is a big body who's an incredible rebounder in his own right, and is probably giving Gobert more of a challenge than you might see if they were to, say, play Dallas in the next round. As far as controlling the inside, I don't think that Utah would have any trouble controlling the inside against a Dallas Mavericks team with Rudy Gobert on the court. So Memphis may actually match up better here in this situation.
Yeah, and regardless of the defensive questions or matchups, the Jazz are not missing a beat. Obviously, that first game was kind of a blip. It is what it is, having Mitchell really hurt. But they've won these games pretty convincingly otherwise. They won game 2, 141 to 129. They won game 3. Was obviously only an 11-point difference or 10-point difference there, 121 to 111. And the reason I say that is because they're shooting 38% from 3. That's about where they were in terms of league average, in terms of their average for the regular season. So they're not missing shots ultimately. They're just, this Grizzlies team's young and fast and fun. What can I say? It's John Morant and Dillon Brooks, and hopefully we can get more out of Jaren Jackson Jr. in the coming years. All right, we're going to roll right into Clippers Mavs, which surprisingly completely flipped scripts 3 or 4 times since we've recorded, because we record on Mondays, of course, to those new listeners out there. Last time Josh and I spoke, this was Mavericks up 1-0, and at one point throughout the week, texting back and forth and whatnot, we thought this Maverick series, this might be over quick. And here we are the following 7 days later, and the series is tied 2-2, and the momentum is fully and entirely swung back on the Clippers side, in my opinion. Let's just assume Luka comes back from that, what seems to be like a tweak of a neck or something, obviously some shoulder, neck, something in that area, from latest Mark Spears tweet. He's going to be fine. It seems like we're still 2 days away. Game 5's in LA on Wednesday at 10 Eastern on TNT. So regardless of that, Josh, assuming full health, because obviously you don't want that to be a big caveat to a series like this, but what are your thoughts moving forward when this game swings back to LA on Wednesday?
Well, full health, I think we're going to see more back and forth between Dallas and LA. They seem to be 2 really evenly matched teams, which shocks me, honestly. That just from the makeup of the rosters, I would have thought that the Clippers would really outmatch Dallas in the series, and Dallas is outplaying expectations quite a bit. It is going to come down to how hurt is Luka Doncic. If Luka Doncic is significantly impaired with his shoulder, if he's not coming out playing within the same rhythm with the same smoothness that he normally plays with, I don't give Dallas much of a chance.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that the series so far has been pertinent on the fact that the Clippers, who are top 5 and a pretty stout defensive team, have had no answer for him. And he's still been able to, after they went up 2-0, I was like, is this another Clippers collapse? I don't think so, to be clear. They're shooting 36% from 3, and that is the most alarming number. And it's like crazy. Here we are, 2021. We're talking about the 3 ball for the second series in a row. on my side of things here, but it does matter. That's where we are with the game. The Clippers they shot 41% on the season. They were the number one three-point shooting team in the league in terms of average, in terms of how they made. They're shooting well below their average. They're going to shoot better. They're going to be more consistent. I think this team, ultimately, what really matters and what really changed the scenery for how this series is going to shape in the next, hopefully, 2 games, if you're a Clippers fan, is that this is the most that these teams have ever played, or these guys have ever played together. This is the most in a full season. Like last year, that 3-1 collapse probably had a lot to do with just they rested X and Y and Z multiple different times. And here we are. This is a full unit of guys that feel like they're really comfortable and happy to play together. They're obviously missing Ibaka. I think that's going to matter, not in this series, but it will matter in the next series or the series after if they make it that far. Our awesome guest last week, Nick, had them making the finals. I don't necessarily see them going that far, but this team is built for a run like this because they're deep and they're talented.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward for the Clippers. I think one of the things is that you're never going to be able to expect a team to shoot like they did in the regular season in the playoffs. It's fairly common knowledge that the defense in the playoffs tightens up quite a bit, and it's fair to expect that everyone's percentages are going to fall when you get there. I do think the Clippers are going to be able to take this series, whether that be in 6 games or 7 games. I don't really know. I think they'll take the series, but the performance they put in thus far does not instill confidence to me in them moving forward after this series. I'm not feeling great about them moving forward. I really don't know what the Clippers are missing because they seem to have everything they need, but something's not being put together.
It's tough playing Luka Doncic. It is what it is. I think we're seeing it as maybe something they're missing. I think it's less about like they're missing that defensive intensity. They're missing that like, hey, we're going to hold you to 99 points and we're going to feel really good doing it. Perfect segue mentioning Luka here. I told Josh prior to recording, and I forgot to mention this in the intro, but at some point, multiple times throughout the rest of this episode, I am going to bring up some off-season takeaways or off-season look forward tos, however you want to word that, for some of these teams, because I think it matters. How these first-round series shape up for some of these teams is really going to change what this offseason is going to look like. This is not the episode, to be clear to the listeners and Josh. It's not the episode where we're breaking down 30 minutes on how the Dallas Mavericks roster is terrible outside of one player. This is the first of the multiple teams I'm going to mention how if the series ends in a certain way, how we're going to be looking at. But quite frankly, just period, I'm going to put this on record. I don't like the pieces around Luka, and that includes Kristaps Porzingis. The reason I say that is because Mark Cuban's way too smart to not realize this. And Luka is visibly, literally hitting himself on the head with a water bottle in game 4 on the bench. Frustrated. And I don't know if that's frustration. Obviously, we're maybe thinking too much into it. He's frustrated, whether it's the series, then losing that going from 2-0 to 2-2. But this team, as of right now, for the next 5 years, no matter how contracts and how players develop shape up, this team's not winning anything past maybe a first round, maybe a second round series. And they need to I'm not saying they need to hit the reset button, obviously, because Luka's 21 years old, 20 years old. But this team is bad outside of Luka Doncic.
Well, I wouldn't go nearly as extreme as what Trevor's saying about the Mavericks roster. I agree in that I don't like Kristaps Porzingis in Dallas. It's weird that Kristaps Porzingis has somehow lost his ability to shoot the 3 since he came from New York to Dallas. It's really hampered his game since he's been there. There are a lot of players in Dallas that I like a lot who are great role players, whether that be Maxi Kleba, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr. I think they're excellent role players. What Dallas is missing is a strong big man that they do not have. Their strong big man, they don't play enough in Boban Marjanovic because he's strong, but frankly doesn't have the basketball skills to play at that playoff level, as much as I love Boban. And then they're missing really a number 2 for Luka. It was very much expected Kristaps would be that number 2, and something has fallen off. Maybe that something could be fixed with potentially better coaching or a better system to play Kristaps Porzingis in. Maybe a system that focuses more on post-ups and less three-point shots, but that's just an idea. But there needs to be a player that steps up with Luka, whether they draft that player or sign them in free agency. At the same time, Luka Doncic is young. He's like 21, 22 years old. He's not, I mean, like, it doesn't seem to indicate that he wants to leave Dallas in any way. I think it's just something Dallas is going to have to focus on, getting that second foundational piece. They've got one star, one leader, and a lot of good role players, but they don't have that other foundational pillar on the team.
They thought that's what Porzingis was going to be.
Yeah.
Not only has he lost the ability to shoot the three, he's also lost the ability to rebound, block shots, have confidence, anything else that I may not be remembering. This is not a roast of Kristaps Porzingis. This is just how his career has shaped, and how that this hasn't been reported on a super large scale, but there's been reports out of Dallas that those two don't get along. It was very similar to Dirk and Jason Terry. However, they being the Mavericks, we are in a completely different era. Dirk is patient. Dirk was a patient player. He was a lifetime Maverick. He was never going to request his trade. That's obviously not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is that Luka in his 6th year, if they just haven't got their crap together as a franchise, sorry, Cuban, love you to death. We're in a player empowerment era. He's going to want to leave. It is what it is. I'm not foreshadowing 5 years in the future. I'm just saying that this team, the way it's built right now, I agree with you. I love the role players around them. I don't love how they're playing for him and how they're not playing as a team. This team's bad outside of the fact that pillar that you're mentioning, that pillar, I don't know how they're going to get it, but it's not Kristaps Porzingis, and they need to capitalize on his value as best as they possibly can. And right now, that's not a lot.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I'm not going to speculate about players that Dallas could go get. I was just looking at what their long-term strategy has to be to build a winner around Luka Doncic. But moving to the next one, let's go talk about another great Eastern European player and the one who's going to win the MVP award, Nikola Jokic in Denver. And the Portland Trail Blazers, the series is tied 2-2. And to be honest, none of the games really seem to be close. It's either Denver dominates Portland or Portland dominates Denver. I could be missing a game that had been close, but every time that I tune in the series, it seems to be going that route. I don't really know what's happening here, quite frankly.
I'm going to disagree with you. Game 3, to answer your question on a game that might have been close. Game 3 was close, 120-115 Nuggets win. That's correct. This is why I love this, because we don't disagree. We disagree in some ways, we don't in others, right? That's what makes this podcast fun. My first sentence of my notes for this week was, this is the closest series of them all. And here's why. The Nuggets with Jamal Murray, win this series in 5 or 6, maybe, whatever, hypothetically, right? They win this series in semi-convincing fashion. But on the Nuggets side, Jokic is averaging 3 assists per game. This is the same guy that averaged 8.3 in the regular season, who you said was going to have the most assists per game at the end of the year. I get it. Russell Westbrook's going to do this thing.
He would be top 5.
Top 5. Sorry. So you got that right either way. My point being is that he's not doing regular season things except for on the scoring and rebounding into things. He's playing like the MVP, but they're not playing like the team that they were that got them to the 3 seed with or without Jamal Murray. Now I get it. Campazzo, or whatever his name is really exciting. We brought him up last week. Josh did. Shout out to you for that. But they're trying to put too much through him and move him through the ball with him in the starting lineup now. And Nurkic, it's no disrespect to Nurkic, can't guard Jokic. So let Jokic be the guy that you need him to be, who is, by the way, we both said it, the MVP. Duh. We gave it to him 4 months ago. I can't fathom why Coach Malone has done this, or why that Jokic. I don't know who's doing this, but this series is really close. And on the other side of the ball, and I'll let you go on after this, Damian Lillard. That's it. We've said this already. Damian Lillard is the reason that these two are going head to head every night, making it seem unclose. To me, the series is super close, and this game, this next game is going to really be the swing of how the things change.
Well, honestly, let's just talk about game 4 and what is the most bizarre game of them all. Jokic was the leading scorer for Denver with 16 points. Second highest scores were Campazzo and Monty Morris, each with 12. The Portland Trailblazers would win the game by 20 thanks to the performance of Norman Powell on an 11 for 15 shooting night with 29 points. Lillard, who you say is the reason that they are doing well, was 1 for 10 from the field with 10 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. Now, he did other things, but he was 1 for 10 from the field. He made 7 free throws that allowed him to reach 10 points. And Portland won. Portland shot 50% from the field in that game, and Denver shot 34%. Denver had a very bad game offensively. Portland had a very weird game offensively on their own side. And frankly, it's just hard to see where the series is going. It seems to be the series of players who are weirdly stepping up into big situations. Norman Powell led Portland to a Game 4 win. Austin Rivers stepped up to lead Denver to the Game 3 win by scoring 21 points and hitting shots in the clutch. It really seems it's going to come down to who's going to be the player that steps up. Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. need to be there for Denver because when they lose, it's because those players do nothing. If they're there for Denver, if they're playing well, I think Denver's going to win this series, as evenly matched as it is. But if they're not there, which they're continually seeming like they're unpredictable, then it'll go Portland's way.
Regardless of what we had prior to this series, I don't remember, to be clear. We'll review it at some point. I think the Blazers do win this series ultimately. And it's funny how we disagree on the series. And then when you, after hearing your last couple minutes there, how we, in some ways, somehow tie it back together and agree in a lot of ways. Norman Powell is the difference maker for both teams, period. Like, doesn't matter how Porter Jr. or Aaron Gordon play. Like, if Norman Powell plays like he did in game 4 with 29, 11 for 15, like you already said, we had the same thing written down, 4 for 4 from 3. To be clear on Damian Lillard, though, Damian Lillard, including in that bad game 4, you're going to have games like that. He's one of those guys we look back on, or we're going to look back on, or we do look back on now. And we're like, he doesn't have those games very often. I really don't remember hearing like, oh, a Damian Lillard 1 for 10 game. But like I mentioned at the top, it's Damian Lillard. He's leading his team in minutes played, field goals made and attempted, 3-pointers made and attempted, free throws made and attempted, assists, steals, and of course, points. Still averaging 30 with a 30.8, even with that 10-point game. No matter what, at this point, Damian Lillard's doing what he can, aside, game 4 aside, right? I'm not going to be dumb to the fact that he had a horrible game, but he's doing everything he can. Norman Powell shouldn't have to step up this much if CJ wasn't going to miss his first 6 shots in game 5. Or game 4, sorry. Talking about weird offensive game. Game 5 is going to be huge tomorrow in Denver. The Blazers are going to have to come out hot, hit shots. And then lastly, unless you have anything else, do you have anything else before I say my final thing?
I want to just say a bold prediction because the series has been weird. And this is just off the wall. There's no backing to this other than the series has been weird, and I've looked down the roster because I'm just predicting something weird will happen again. The reason Game 5 is won is either going to be an outstanding performance from either Carmelo Anthony or Paul Millsap. It'll be one of those two.
I love that because as a big fan of Melo, I think that'd be really cool to see. He's shooting 42% from 3 in this series. So
I think it's much more likely that it's Carmelo Anthony than Paul Millsap.
He made somebody was guarding him the other night, and he made him look silly. Like he did like a little, I think it was not Nurkic. Nurkic's on his team. What's the backup center for the Nuggets? I can't remember his name now. But yeah, he just hit a 3 right over the top of him, and Melo's an awesome player, and I'm happy to see him succeeding on this Blazers team. Off-season number 2 for Trevor here. I love this because Josh has no clue which team is which, and I just told him I would just let him live react to it. If I'm Paul Allen, listeners are like, who the heck's Paul Allen? Josh, do you know who Paul Allen is?
I think he's in the Portland front office.
You'd be correct. He's actually the man that pays their paychecks. He's the owner of the Portland Trailblazers. If I'm Paul Allen right now, If they lose this series after everything Lillard's given them, after everything McCollum's given them, after everything that the GMs that have been there, two different GMs in Damian Lillard's career, by the way, that have put up what they can to succeed and make it to one Western Conference Finals. I'm clearing house. I'm firing everybody. I'm firing every single person that has a title in that front office. If you're not someone who owns the team named Paul Allen, you're gone. Out the building. See ya. Pack up. Be out tomorrow. Go ahead.
Clarification, it's Paul Allen's family that owns the team.
Paul Allen, Joy Allen, all of them, right? I get it.
Yeah.
All of them. Everybody but the Allen family is fired if I'm them. Because at this point, either one of two scenarios plays out, and I feel completely strongly about this. We mentioned this before already. Either A, Lillard gets out by the Blazers' choice or by Lillard saying, I'm gone, homie, like trade me. And they get the best value they can for him and go from there. At that point, it's a matter of retool. You got some good pieces. I'm not saying they're a bad team. Or B, make no one safe but Lillard and trade everyone else who hasn't contributed to this long 8-year, 9, 10-year run for this Blazers team. Blazers fans are ready for a breakthrough, and it hasn't happened. And one of those two things will happen. If I'm the Allen family, I've had enough.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree on the side of I think if there isn't a breakthrough this season. Now, given Damian Lillard is a very loyal player who seems to love Portland. So, I mean, I could be completely wrong. I don't know what his decisions would be, but I could fully see if you had to tell me right now a major all-star or major player in the NBA was going to be put on the trade block and traded this summer prior to the next NBA season, I'd say it would be Damian Lillard because he's the best player on a team that's just not reaching that potential.
That's why I gave two scenarios, because we don't know. You're right. We don't know what Lillard feels about Portland. He clearly loves the city. He loves the fans. That's not the question here. The question is, if you being someone in the Blazers facility, if you haven't contributed in some way to this team making one Western Conference Finals in Damian Lillard's career, or two, might be two, it's still less than they should in either a good, most of the time, good loaded West. Something's got to happen, and that ain't been happening, period. It is what it is. And to the listeners and to Josh as well, this is not the last offseason one, but this was the one I was referring to Josh off recording. This is the one that we were going to get to that I feel very strongly about. Damian Lillard, I want you to be happy, man.
All right, Trevor's fired up, so let's keep it that way. Let's move on to the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. So last time we were here, we were really thinking the Lakers were in trouble. And then the Lakers won the next two games and did awesome. And now we're thinking the Lakers are in trouble again after game 4. So, Trevor, how do you feel about this emotional roller coaster you've been on the past week?
Can I just be real with you? This is the third time today that we've agreed and disagreed on the same, we went back and forth and still ended up agreeing on something. I'm just going to read my notes verbatim. People are going to be surprised when I read Nuggets Blazers and say, that's the closest series. Because they're going to go, well, this series is 2-2. Chris Paul is only averaging 9 points per game. I'll get to that in a moment. But this is not the closest series. The answer is very simple. And my emotional roller coaster aside. This one's being held up by the Lakers defense. No team has scored more than 109 points this series. And AD and LeBron keeping them in it. That's it. Obviously, with AD being questionable and more than likely out for Game 5 and KCP coming back for Game 5 more than likely. The Suns are the better team. I've been clear on that, how I feel. The Suns have 4 players averaging double figures in points per game this series. And Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Chris Paul are not in that 4. Cameron Payne. Yes, Bulls fan. That Cameron Payne is averaging 13 points per game in this series and is their third leading scorer. Yeah, Josh, that Cameron Payne. The same Cameron Payne that is averaging more points per game than Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, Pau Gasol. I'm so mad. Marc Gasol. I'm going to have a heart attack by the end of next
Having
week.
a flashback to better days.
Yeah, I'm going to have a heart attack, quite literally. I think my pulse might reach an all-time high. This series has shifted back and forth way too much. We were a Chris Paul shoulder injury, like I mentioned with Nick last week. We were a Chris Paul shoulder injury away from this series being completely different. And the Lakers are shooting 29% from three. Josh, I'm done.
I'm not going to be overly long on this. In the Dallas-LA series, I said the key was how bad was Luka Doncic hurt. The key here, how bad is Anthony Davis hurt? And it seems like it's not good going forward the next few games. Hope he's healthy. Hope he's ready to play, but it doesn't look good. It looks worse moving forward. And as good as LeBron James is, the Lakers don't have a chance without Anthony Davis on the court to make it past this Phoenix Suns team.
Two things before we can just completely get away from this series for the next 7 days for the safety and well-being of one of us. LeBron James cannot average 21.8 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, and 8.5 assists for this team right now. The way it's constructed, obviously 21, 7.5, and 8.5 by any player in any series is a big deal. I am holding him to a high standard because my second point being the supporting cast, like I mentioned, ain't it. Period. I liked emotionally the team better last year. This team's more talented. I don't think that's a question.
No, it's not.
Not a single player outside of the two people named Anthony Davis and LeBron James are averaging more than 10 points per game in this series. Dennis Schroeder averaged 18 last year. 18. Also, shout out to Devin Booker, 25 a game. I said that I would trust him in a playoff series 8 months ago, assuming the Suns made it this far. And shout out to Devin Booker.
Trevor, in game 4 for the Lakers, no looking at a box score, which Laker attempted the most three-pointers in game 4?
It's not Wesley Matthews because he's who I thought should have attempted the most. I said in our group chat, it was very clear Wesley Matthews needs to be the Rajon Rondo of this team of last year. He has been nothing but opposite of that.
Just give an answer. You don't know. You can say you don't know.
It's probably Marc Gasol.
LeBron James attempted the most three-pointers for the Lakers in game 4. He was 1 for 7. Trevor's LeBron James the best three-point shooter on the Los Angeles Lakers team?
No, none of them are. They're 29%.
Let me actually change the question. Is LeBron James, would you consider him a good three-point shooter?
If there's less than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that answer completely changes. No, he's not a great three-point shooter. Let's be honest. I don't know his career average. I know it's below 35, but it is what it is. It's LeBron James. He's going to eventually make some of those. He doesn't need to be shooting 7. That's the whole point I'm bringing back up with the supporting cast thing. They should be the one shooting 1 from 7, and I can be understandably mad. He shouldn't have to take those 7 shots.
He's a career 34.5% three-point shooter. So you're right in that it is under 35. It amazed me watching that game how many three-pointers LeBron James attempted in what was a close game down the stretch, early in the shot clock. For a player with as high as a basketball IQ as LeBron has, that just doesn't make any sense to me. He's one of the greatest scorers when he gets to the basket and gets in the paint that we've ever seen. And he's attempting threes like he can make the shot consistently. And he can't. He's much more effective getting in the lane and going to the basket. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why he wasn't doing that.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm not going to say he's given up on that supporting cast. He hasn't. He believes in these guys. He's a LeBron James ultimately. He wouldn't want them there if he didn't believe in them. That probably was an ultimate level of confidence that he needed to instill in himself. And it is what it is. He did make them. And that game, that just shows how defensive a series it is. The fact that he took 7 shots like that, shouldn't have taken any. And the Suns ultimately, assuming health, are holding up defensively with, Torrey Craig and Cam Johnson and DeAndre Ayton, guys like that are being difference makers in this series. And ultimately this series is over.
We will see. Game 5 will be fun. All right, let's move in now to the Eastern Conference and kick it off with Philadelphia and Washington. Here's my take on Philly and Washington. Philly's up 3 games to 0 and is playing right now in a close game with Washington that I think they ultimately are going to pull out and the series will be over. That's my take.
Good, because we spent a long time in the Western Conference. So here's my take. There's not really any takes to this series, other than I'm just going to say that as a person who has the Sixers winning not only the Eastern Conference and the NBA Finals as well, I'm glad to see this team playing like they are. Doc Rivers is a difference maker for the fact that they're playing as hard as they've ever played in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons' time in Philadelphia so far. He's showing as the best coaching change in the offseason. Ultimately, the Sixers team, the fact that they're not efficiently, let me be clear, they're playing very efficiently. They're shooting very well, 54% from field, 51% from three, 68% from the free throw line. A lot of that has to do with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons' game 1 for 6 performance. But at the end of the day, this team is just not. I feel like we're just two ends of a completely different spectrum here. It's where the Sixers are versus the Wizards are, even with Beal and Westbrook. And I think we're not even seeing the fullest potential of the Sixers team. We're just seeing how dominant it is. Game 4 is only close, by the way, as of me saying this right this moment. It's 94-97 Wizards with 8 minutes left in the fourth. And Embiid's out, and it was out about beginning of the third quarter for what Josh and I laughed at and said was a knee injury. And when he fell and grabbed his back, I knew that was on purpose. So, look, this Sixers team is going to just continue to roll through the Eastern Conference, assuming they can take care of. Josh, who are they playing next round?
Second round will be the winner of the Knicks and the Hawks that is currently led by Atlanta 3-1. So, Trevor, going back to your predictions in the playoff preview, the Knicks were going to sweep the Hawks, and then last week after the Hawks won game 1, the Knicks were going to win in 5. Knicks are down 3-1. What's your comment?
So this is a clear indication that we're now on that series and no longer on Philadelphia. Did I accidentally? Actually, you know what? Before I answer that question, this was another one of my Wizards off-season points. And you're like, wait a minute. Whoa, hold on. The Wizards. Hold on. It's not necessarily, it's more of just making sure that this is on record.
Blow it up.
Really? So, okay. All right. This is going to be a lot longer than I thought. My thoughts were this is an odd situation. This is the first full year with Westbrook and Beal. I think if I'm a Wizards fan, this opinion's different than if I'm a Wizards GM because this Wizards team is young. And that's why I don't necessarily, I disagree with you. I don't think it's a blow up scenario because this supporting cast, they're one of two scenarios. Again, I'm going to give you A and B. They're a young player, young and unknown, guy like, I know Seiko Doumbouya. No, is he not? I'm sorry, Rui Hachimura. And then the guy this year that they drafted, who I cannot think of right at this moment.
Danny Avdija.
Thank you. They're one of those two guys, or a guy out of nowhere, young player breakthrough away from being really awesome and fun and competitive with a healthy Beal and Westbrook, or you're a pissed off Bradley Beal away from, your scenario, blowing it up.
My personal thought is don't even wait for Bradley Beal to request the trade that ultimately I think would be coming. Bradley Beal's trade, there have been rumors about the Wizards. There have been so much smoke around Bradley Beal being shopped on trades for the past 3 or 4 years in Washington that there has to be something to that. And the Bradley Beal trade capital has never been higher than it is right now. He had a much better season than he's ever had, and his trade capital is sky high. And he works perfect as an off-ball shooter, which is great for any team that has a ball-dominant player who wants to bring somebody in. Like Dallas, for instance. I'm not going to get into speculating, but I'm just putting that out there.
Shall we call it a sweepstakes for Bradley Beal?
I'm just saying, it just popped into my head of a team who drastically needs a second scorer who's not ball dominant to their ball dominant star point guard. I'm just saying it's there. But Washington has, like you said, great young players. Westbrook and Beal are past 30, I think. They're not going to be at this quality when those players grow up and are ready to compete. Washington has a couple of stars, one you can trade in Beal, one whose contract you can't really trade in Westbrook, and an opportunity to get some capital and move forward and rebuild the team. I think that's what they should do.
I'm so glad we're getting some off-season sprinkle in here. So can I just, did I mean to say Atlanta last week? Is that what I meant to say when it's series in 5? I meant to say Atlanta, right? That's what it was.
No,
I didn't. So funny how you answered my own question already, or you stated my first line here of my notes already. This series is over.
Yeah, it is. Only one team's ever come back from down 3-1. Well, no, 2 teams have now, right?
2 teams.
2 now.
2 teams. This ain't one of them. This ain't gonna be number 3. I'm trying to gather myself because I don't know where to start. First of all, this is yet again another Tom Thibodeau-led playoff team who's going to disappoint myself and fans in the first round or second. But I think I have to give credit to Hawks GM Travis Schlenk first. As crazy as it seems that this deep, young, veteran mixed Hawks team, and here I am giving credit out of those 10 players. I'm giving credit to the GM who built them. Danilo Gallinari, Bogdanovich, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Clint Capella, Lou Williams. This is all off the top of head, by the way, to be completely clear. There's some guys I'm missing. But regardless, that team's really good. Like that, ultimately, I miss that as someone who picked them, obviously, to lose a series in 5. As much as I don't want to give Trae Young any credit, 27.5 and 10. He's looking like the next villain. He really is.
Villain?
The way he looked in the Garden on game 1? Oh, come on. That was Reggie Miller.
I don't know about villain.
That was Reggie Miller-esque. That's going to have Knicks fans hating him for the rest of his life, not career, life. That was brutal. Like,
yeah, man. Had him hating him so much they spit on him.
Yeah, so we'll get to that. We'll save that for the end. Man, just I like this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one segment I'm going to look back on when I'm editing, and I'm like hate myself because I'm like stuttering so much and confused on what to even go. I'm wrong. Let me be clear, guys, listeners, girls, whoever. I was wrong in New York. It is what it is. Julius Randle, where is this All-NBA second team performance in regular season? The Hawks are not like they're a good defensive team. Don't get me wrong, but they're not a top 5 defensive team. And why are they making Julius Randle look like he's the 6th man on a 38-win team? I don't get it. 16 a game, 11.5 rebounds. That's tough, man.
I think this is one of those situations of really a lethal offense in what Atlanta has, meaning a defensive team with the Knicks. And this time, lethal offense came out on top. This was a construction of a Hawks roster that we raved about in the offseason prior to the start of the year. And under Lloyd Pierce, they weren't putting it together. Once Nate McMillan took over as interim head coach, this Hawks team just started rolling, and they have not looked back since. They are an incredibly well put together team. They have an incredible scorer in Trae Young and just the best shooters I've seen around him. The Hawks have done great, and they should be proud of how far their team has come, and they're going to get that top 4 finish in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks shouldn't be – Knicks fans are going to be upset the way this has gone, obviously. But given where they've been before and where they're at now, the Knicks fans should be happy about this season. So it was a great step forward for the franchise. It's a great step forward for both of these franchises. Regardless of the end of the series, neither of them are making it past Philadelphia. It's stepping from where they've made their step up to a team that's way better put together. Now I'm saying this 2 weeks later, I may look back and Atlanta has Philly on the ropes, and we're going to be asking what happened, but this is awesome step forward for both franchises who've been struggling over the past 10 years.
The Knicks just point blank can't hit shots. And that's what it comes down to. They're averaging 99 a game.
And that was the case the whole season.
They were the slowest team.
They couldn't do the defense. They couldn't play that well in offense.
They shot historically well from three as a franchise, but in the series, they're 32%. I'm always tied back to the three-pointer because that's what really does swing some of these series. In Atlanta's case, especially from making them. But the Knicks, at the end of the day, you're right, because if you had told a Knicks fan in 2017, and I think 2017, Julius Randle obviously still would have been a Laker. But if you had told a New York Knicks fan, a diehard, Spike Lee, let's say, if you and I, Josh, were talking to Spike Lee in 2017, and you said the New York Knicks would be the 4 seed, playing the Atlanta Hawks, the 5 seed, by a Julius Randle-led team, him or any other New Yorker would have told you, you're explicit crazy. It's a clean podcast. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say what they really would say. And Knicks fans have everything to look forward to, except for the fact that we're not going to end up speculating for the next 3 years on who they could or could not have gotten or drafted, because this team's at a weird point too. Because Julius Randle's in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
Quickly's young. Knox is not looking hot. Toppin's still really young in her first year. I get it. They might have overachieved. Sorry, Knicks fans. I will mute the word Knicks on Twitter after the next week.
Yeah, we're going to move on because I'm not ready to break down where the Knicks roster is because it's weird. And for the most part, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Surprisingly, they weren't one of my off-season teams, believe it or not, because I think they are still young.
Well, I think we can go forward 3 versus 6 in the East. Milwaukee looks like the team that's going to win the East. That's my take. Where's yours, Trev? What do you got?
The Bucks took this one personally. That's what I got.
They did.
They took this personally.
Giannis took this personally.
Bingo. You took the words out of my mouth. He averaged 23.5, which, by the way, that just shows how good the supporting cast this year finally is coming together. Brent Forbes has more points in this series than Jimmy Butler. Yes, Spurs fans. That Brent Forbes. I'm going to do that again for the second time tonight. I get it. That's a fluke. But he and the rest of that supporting cast are going to be the difference maker, and it's actually not going to be Giannis. I know that sounds ridiculous because Giannis is going to do Giannis things. He averaged 15 points a game this series, 7.5 assists, 23.5 points per game. This series should not be talked about a lot from us. However, the Bucks did this shooting 32% from 3. 32. That's bottom 5 in the league in the regular season. And they beat the Heat in 4. The only sweep of the playoffs.
So far.
Could be different in about 6 minutes. Josh, do you have anything else about the Bucks before I open a can of worms that needs to be opened?
About the Bucks, no.
Oh, so you do have Heat things. Okay. I'll open
Just
it up
with passive-aggressive comment. That's it.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, in case I already have it.
Oh, I was just going to say that, it's a good thing Miami didn't offer up Tyler Hero in those James Harden trade talks. Where would they be without him?
You need to mute the word Heat on Twitter this week. So, funny enough, I will say this. I'm going to give the Heat some slack, and I'll tell you why. They're actually I'm not defending that in any way because James Harden was one Tyler Hero away from being a Heat, and this series could be completely different. Once again, hypotheticals all here, of course, on the Two Pointers podcast. Not really, I'm kidding. This team was one of the most injury-riddled and COVID-affected teams. They were not able to play more than about 25 games as a full, healthy, cohesive unit, and you could really tell that because Jimmy Butler, no matter how bad he played this series, I'm not defending that whatsoever. Jimmy Butler played like crap. But when that team's chemistry is not clicking, a guy like Jimmy Butler makes that really obvious because that's his whole mantra, is how he leads and orchestrates the chemistry of a team. And Bam Adebayo looked like he thought he was in the second round of the high school state playoffs. Like he did not come to play whatsoever. And he was their leading scorer let me be clear. Here's what I mean by the Heat in terms of the can of worms that needs to be opened. They did all this, of course, without Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo is not the person that makes this series a changing event. However, in the second week of May, Oladipo decided on a season-ending surgery on his right quad tendon that he has been having problems with since his time in Indiana. He is set to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and he could be the difference maker for the next 2 years for the Heat, depending on if he's fully healthy and they want to bring him back.
Do you really think he wants to stay?
I really don't have a clue, and that's the crazy part about it.
I'll tell you this. He opted out of playing in the playoffs to opt into getting a surgery to make sure that he looks his best ahead of his unrestricted free agency. He didn't want to be in Indiana. He obviously didn't want to be in Houston. I'm not saying any player should play through an injury, but it seems like he wasn't bought in Miami. I don't think Victor Oladipo is going to stay in Miami. I don't know where he goes. But if I were to make a prediction, I'd say not Miami.
He's going to be, depending on how extensions and how playoff series shape the free agency landscape, that's going to change in the next 2 months. He's going to be one of the biggest points of emphasis on what we talk about on Wednesday in July. And at the end of the day, I like Victor. I just hope that this injury, I hope that you're right about the fact that he chose to recover regardless of how he feels about Miami. He chose to recover for the fact that I'm sure he wants to keep playing, obviously. Duh, he's a basketball player that gets paid $20 million a year to do it. But if he can't get back to that level, he's not going to get paid $20 million a year. He's going to get paid $1 million a year, ultimately. And this has nothing to do with the Heat, because at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think he's gone. I just look forward to seeing where he is going, and he's probably the biggest mystery, and I think it's not even close.
Well, let's move on to what I will call what might be the most personal series in the playoffs in Brooklyn and Boston. So Kyrie Irving did what you don't do when you come to Boston at the end of the game 4, and he walked to the center of the Celtics court and stamped on the face of Lucky, the Celtics leprechaun that's in the center of the court. I know that thanks to Kevin Garnett calling that out, not very happy about Kyrie Irving's actions. No love lost between Kyrie Irving and Boston, as we see another point guard not happy about Boston after leaving. Shocker. Trevor, what are your thoughts on this series and kind of the Kyrie Irving and Boston dynamics?
I'm going to save the dynamics part of it for the last segment before trivia here regarding fan behavior, because there was some retaliation from Boston fans there. I'm going to highlight the series because very shortly after this series, that's going to be our next topic. So the first thing I'll say is this series should have ended on Sunday in 4 games. It took a 50-point game, once again, by Mr. Jason Tatum, who's looking like, 2004 Kobe Bryant at this point, the way he's carrying this team and those middle 2000s Kobe teams. He obviously took a lot of things from Kobe, and you can tell that by the way he says, all y'all suck, and here I am. I'm going to score 50 and keep us in this series. But this series, regardless of how bad the Celtics team is, I'll get to that in a moment after your comments. This series just truly shows you how tough it's going to be to stop KD, Kyrie, and Harden. That's the most glaring thing of all. I mean, you and I both have watched maybe 40 minutes of this game in total combined, or this series in combined. I'm going to stand by what I said, that Jaylen Brown, this series is still 4 or 5.
My only thoughts is that I'm ready to watch the slugfest that's going to be Brooklyn and Milwaukee when this thing ends.
That would be presumably that would be the Western Conference Finals matchup, yes? Or is that next series? Sorry, that's next series. You're right. I'm sorry. Brain fart. That would be next. Yeah, that's going to be wild. The Nets versus your pick out of the East. Since you have nothing else to say, I'm going to close us out of the series conversation with my final off-season remark. And if you thought the Blazers one was good, boy, are you and the listeners in for a good one. In the third quarter of game four, in the third quarter of game four, the Celtics at one point had a lineup on the floor, and this is not a joke. I wish this was a joke. I really do. Celtics fans, as high and mighty and good as you are compared to us Lakers fans with all the titles, I don't feel bad for you. Sorry. They had a lineup at one point of Semi Olajuwon, Evan Fournier, Peyton Pritchard, Grant Williams, and Marcus Smart. Tatum sat, and that team's garbage. The Nets proceeded to go on a 31-4 run in the third quarter. This offseason, Danny Ainge is either one or no moves away from losing his job if I'm the person who makes the decisions on who has a job in Boston. Because at this point, Marcus Smart was the second leading scorer in Game 3 with 23 when Tatum had 50. Kemba played 33 points. I get it. He obviously was battling an injury, but Kemba has not been Kemba since he left Charlotte. Sorry, Josh. Well, not sorry to you. He left. So,
fully agree.
In 33 minutes, he had 6 points and 3 assists. You think that's what you want out of your third guy in Boston? Boston fans? This team will only take them, like we mentioned, 1,000 times as far as Tatum and Brown will take them. And I have a question for you, Josh. Before you react to how this Celtics fans may be hoping that they get a top 5 pick next year after how bad this team is outside of Tatum and Brown. Who has a better supporting cast right now, Josh? The Celtics or the Mavericks?
Injuries or no injuries?
Period. Right now. Period. I don't care. I don't care what you consider. It's a simple question in the terms of the answer simple.
I would take the Mavericks supporting cast right now.
I would too. And the Mavericks have a guy who was never, and they don't have any all-stars outside of their top 2 guys. We're just assuming Tatum, Brown, Luka, Kristaps. No all-stars in those rest of the 8 players. The Celtics have Kemba Walker. They have a veteran Cavalier title-winning Tristan Thompson. And they have every bit of the other garbage that I previously mentioned. This is deeper than we even mentioned 5 months ago when we were like, this Celtics team, this offseason in that unreleased pod. And even when we did mention it, they suck. I have no other word to put it. They're terrible. And Celtics fans are just, at this point, turning a blind eye. Danny Ainge does not need a job after, when is Game 5? I have it written down. After Tuesday, June 1st at 7:30 Eastern on TNT. After that night, Danny Ainge should wake up the next morning unemployed. That's it. That's the offseason for the Celtics. What they do after that, I'm a Lakers fan. I could care less.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that I called it, but back in December when, and I don't want to bask in the glow, but I'm going to, in full transparency, being a Hornets fan who loved Kemba Walker, I'm bitter when it comes to the Celtics. I'll put it out there. I'll say it. I'm bitter. I'm biased. But in December, when everybody was saying the Celtics going to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, I was hitting the panic button hard on the Boston team. The team didn't look good. Plain and simple. They got actively worse in the offseason. They let what I hope they now admit is a key contributor in Gordon Hayward walk. It's become clear that going with Kemba Walker over keeping Terry Rozier and developing him was a bad decision. Kemba's knees quickly gave out. Not fully, but he's not the Kemba that he was in Charlotte because he's getting older and he's not very big. And he's not a sharpshooter from the outside. He gets the basket. He's not Kyrie Irving. He's not Terry Rozier. He's a different style of point guard. And as he ages, his production is going to go down rapidly. The Celtics are in a horribly weird spot because they've got 2 pieces any team would kill for. And they're not going to trade them. I don't think they will. I don't think they should. But they're in a bad situation where they're kind of at a crossroads that I see. First, I think Brad Stevens is going to get scapegoated in Boston. He's going to be fired as the head coach because of the underperformance.
This offseason? You're saying that this offseason you think he's gone?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think he should be. I think he's a great coach.
Agreed.
I don't think he had any help. I don't think he and Danny Ainge are on the same page because Brad Stevens has publicly questioned the decisions of Danny Ainge in press conferences post-game in the regular season. He has publicly asked why Daniel Tice was traded to the Chicago Bulls. So this is not a speculation on my part. Brad Stevens asked. He voiced active confusion as to why Daniel Tice was traded away from the Celtics. He wasn't happy about it. So there's a major disconnect between the GM and the head coach. That's obvious. I think Brad Stevens will be gone first. Danny Ainge will make the decision. Whether Ainge is gone or not, I think Danny Ainge in the past has shown to be a very good GM. I'm not going to advocate that anyone should lose their job. I'm not going to ever advocate for that. My prediction is Brad Stevens will lose his job. I don't think he should, but I think he will. The Celtics are in a situation of you either go all in right now, and I mean go all in hard and throw everything you have financially and asset-wise to build up the best team you can behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and those are the only two unmovable players. Move the rest of the team, do whatever it takes. Or you got to tear everything down, get rid of everybody except for Jason Tatum, and try to build back a new team around him because he's young as quickly as you can. That's the crossroads the Celtics are at, in my opinion. Okay, so moving out of the postseason series, we have a couple of pieces of news to cover at the end. One is just the rampant disrespect that has been shown by fans to opposing players throughout the playoffs. I'm going to try to run through everything that's happened. I'm probably going to miss things. We have the always, I'll just say wild Philadelphia fans throwing popcorn onto Russell Westbrook as he went through the tunnel after an apparent injury. We had the New York Knicks spitting on Trae Young, the Utah Jazz fans berating and insulting Ja Morant's family, and the Boston Celtics fans chucking a water bottle at the head of Kyrie Irving. Did I miss anyone?
I'm going to throw in one that happened about an hour ago. The fan who ran onto court during Wizards 76ers tonight has been banned from the arena, and charges are being pursued with DC Police Department.
Yes, Washington fan who ran onto court in the middle of the game. This is stupid. Fans need to understand that they don't have the right to do this. If you throw an item at someone or spit on someone like it's physical assault, they're breaking the law criminally. They're not isolated because they're in the crowd. And there needs to end this disconnect, this idea that they don't see these basketball players as people. They're people. And they're treating them by doing this like they're not human beings. And it's just outrageous. And I've been disgusted by it, and I'm tired of seeing it. And I just wanted to talk about that.
So I'm not going to have, to be clear with you and to the listeners, I'm not going to have any specific thing to say about any specific one of these. They're all wrong. I mean, we both agree on that, since there's no agree on this. But I think what fans are forgetting, or the bad fans, let's be clear, they think it's funny, first of all. It's not. As two people who are very strongly opinionated on the NBA publicly, it's not funny. Public service announcement here. It's not. What I think a lot of fans, or the people who are trying to do this, what I think they're forgetting is the guy that started the Malice in the Palace. Shout out to Ron Artest, way before our time, by the way. And this is just on the fact that both of us are NBA historians. We're going to remember stuff like that. Those who repeat history are doomed, or those who are ignorant to history are doomed to repeat it. The fan that caused the Malice in the Palace was fined in court, or was sued in total court, $1.8 million. Some of these
dudes for inciting a riot.
Some of these guys who are doing this, if they're making $48,000 a year, you're in debt for the rest of your life from this court case. It's not cool. It's not funny. Some of these guys have money, and because they have season tickets and all, why are you risking all this? Why are you risking your season tickets, your fandom, the reputation of your team, the reputation of your fanhood, your fan base, for retaliation, for a joke, for what? It's not cool. It's not funny. The Kyrie one specifically, I'm not defending what the Boston Celtics fan did. in a violent act. Obviously, he'll be sued for that to the strongest extent for throwing a water bottle, and they are actually charging it technically as assault with a deadly weapon, even though it's a water bottle. Don't really care. Kyrie made comments prior to that Game 3 return to Boston and hoping for, quote, no racism from Boston, or no subtle racism from Boston's fans, and would like to be respected. And then proceeds to stamp on the logo. Kevin Garnett had every correct manner for what he said. I'm glad he said what he said, and I don't have a lot to say about this because it just needs to stop.
Well, regardless of what Kyrie Irving did to the logo, two things are certain. There's no grounds for any racist comments ever, for whatever reason, or for throwing anything at him, regardless of what he did to the logo. As far as his desire to be respected, the stomping on the logo, you're not going to get that in Boston after doing that. And he should know that you're not going to get respected or talked to nicely by the fans after doing that. But once again, like, him doing that is no excuse for the reception. For throwing the water bottle, people just need to stop. Every person that does this, thankfully, got a lifetime ban for it, because they don't need to be at those games, frankly. Other piece of small news from this week in basketball, moving to a bit of a weird story, coming out of Olympic qualifying for 2021. This is the first year in the Olympics that 3-on-3 basketball is going to be in the Olympics for men and women. Unfortunately for the United States, the U.S. will not have a men's team fielded for the 3-on-3 men's basketball in the Tokyo Olympics because they failed to qualify after losing to the Netherlands this week. What? So the sport that was invented in America, this is beyond the fact that in the last World Cup, the U.S. men's national team finished in 7th place. We're not going down that route yet. I'll get there. But the team that was made up of Robbie Hummel, a former Minnesota Timberwolf, who played at Purdue University College, Dominique Jones, who is apparently the number 1 ranked 3-on-3 basketball player in the U.S., at least that regularly competes in 3-on-3 basketball, because our professional players aren't doing that. And active G League guard and professional player Canyon Barry, the son of Rick Barry, competed in qualification for the United States, and they didn't qualify. Now, I'll be honest in that I don't know much about these 3 basketball players that competed for us. But how is the United States not qualifying in a basketball? I'm not even talking about winning. They didn't qualify in basketball. The international competition for the USA in basketball in the past few years has been embarrassing. We finished 7th in the last international competition. The U.S. men's national team. 7th. The team was led by Donovan Mitchell. And no disrespect to Donovan Mitchell when I'm saying this, but it's the U.S. men's national basketball team. That team should be led by Kevin Durant and LeBron James, because they should be playing. And the U.S. men's national team has another chance in the Olympics to get some respect back coming up in July. And I'm hoping that LeBron James and Stephen Curry, who I'm going to point to specifically because they both stated that they were going to play in the Tokyo Olympics after the 7th place finish at FIBA 2018 for the U.S. men's national team, that they would play in the Olympics. I'm hoping the 2 of them will be there to play so that the U.S. men's basketball team won't be continuing to, not podium and not qualify for things in basketball, the sport that is utterly dominated by the United States and should be completely.
Josh, I wish I had more for you because we could roll into trivia, but they should just slap KD, Kyrie, and Harden out there in this 3-on-3 and it'd be done, and we would never lose again until they retire.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm glad that we're sprinkling some non-NBA. Somehow it's still NBA related, of course.
All right. Lighthearted time. Let's move to trivia. I don't have a transition, quite frankly. We're going to go lighthearted. I'm going to pull up my exact stat, but I'll start introing it. I talked about earlier in the podcast how offensive numbers can't be expected to be maintained in the playoffs as they are in the regular season. Frankly, it's harder to score in the playoffs. John Morant's done an amazing job of that and has really branched out. And I think we've seen a lot of great things in regards to scoring. So, what I wanted to ask you in the trivia question about today is I have pulled up the all-time playoff point leaders in NBA history. But what I'm going to ask you is about the active career points leaders. So I've got the top 10 active scorers in NBA playoff history. This is their whole careers, just the active players, not retired players. You got that across?
Yeah, is this points per game? Yes.
Points scored.
Points total. God,
Because it
okay.
can't be points per game if someone's only played in 4 games and did amazing. That'd be
That's true. Total points played.
So
this is
make
all
it easier
time,
on you.
but active players.
I have the top 10 pulled up, active players, because I feel like this list is fairly easy, and I think you'll get a lot of them. To get the point, you have to get 7. If you get all 10, I will give you 2 points. As you name the players, I'll tell you if you're right or wrong, and I'll tell you where the player is on the list.
All right,
but
so to be clear,
all-time point leaders in the playoffs.
All-time. And that's top 10. You have just the actives in front of you. Yes, that's really cool that that's the case. That's really neat. Active all-time. All right, I like this because this doesn't necessarily pull my NBA historian brain like I've been very on record to say that I am up right now in the trivia. And Josh, I would say, is the smarter of the two of us.
Trevor's up by half a point. Let's get it. It's 7 to 6.5.
Yeah, I'm choking away a 2.5 point lead. So, as you were stating it, I was writing down as many as I could think of that immediately came to my mind that I think are correct. And I'm just going to
10 guesses.
Right. I'm going to start with my first 3 that I think have to be on here because it's active points, only active. And I think that's really nice. I like that. Damian Lillard is my first guess because Damian Lillard has made the playoffs a ton.
Wrong.
Wow. Okay. Was he like 11 at least? Was he like at least 11? Please tell me he's at least 11. Active? Really? Like, come on.
22.
Okay. Well, that sucks. All right. So you can't get 2 points, I can tell you that. LeBron James. We'll go ahead and get the easy one out of the way.
That is correct. LeBron James is first amongst active players. LeBron James is also actually first all-time in playoff
points. That I didn't know.
7,578 playoff points scored in his career.
This is a good time to say that Luka Doncic will probably break that record at some point if he plays for 20 years like LeBron does. Carmelo Anthony is on that list as well.
Carmelo Anthony is on that list. He is number 9, 1,892 career playoff points.
9?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. This is going to be a lot harder than I thought, man. There's a lot of guys that are retired now that it could be on that list, like Dwayne Wade. This is not a guess, of course. Oh, God.
Remember active players, so Dwayne Wade wouldn't be there.
I know. I'm just using that as an example of a guy that should be in the top 10, but he's not because he's not active. Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant is number 2, 4,152. Now realize LeBron James active 7,578. Durant number 2, 4,182.
Crazy.
LeBron James has 3,400 more points in the playoffs.
All right, so I've got
through 4 guesses. You've gotten 3 correct.
Okay, I've got 3 for 4. All right. Let me go because I think he's just scored that much and it's active. It's got to be James Harden.
James Harden is 3rd, 3,116.
Wow, 3rd. I would not have said he was 3rd. Guys that have played a long time and have been in the playoffs more than less. Chris Paul.
Chris Paul is number 8.
Nice.
2,320.
I'm writing down their position as well to try to help me through this thought process because this is really nice.
5 out of 6. 4 guesses to go. You got to get 2 more out of the next 4.
All time. Can I have one hint since I don't get more than 10 guesses?
No. I think it should be that clear, so I'm just not gonna.
Oh no! Why? What am I missing? Oh no! Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook is 5.
Okay.
2,684.
Westbrook. Thank you.
So one more 5. Correct, and you got the point.
All right, good. I just want the point. I really do. That's like the one thing.
You can take the 3 more guesses. See if you can get. I'll even give you 4 more guesses to see if you can get the last 4 players.
All right, so 1, I have 2, I have 3, I have 4. I'm missing 4. So I'm trying to think. Obviously I'm gonna have to edit this so I can take as long as I want. Damian Lillard surprises me. I'm really confused by that one, but let me just think. Like California. Oh, Steph Curry.
Steph Curry's fourth.
I was forgetting. I was like, I'm definitely forgetting number 4.
968.
Can I ask you this? Is there a really random non-perennial all-star on there that I'm just not thinking of that's like more role player than less?
Carmelo Anthony would be the most random one.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
That's why I didn't give you hints.
That's fair. That's fair. I was just making sure because I'm like, I'm out of Knicks. I'm out of Nets. I'm out of Bucks. I'm starting to like go through this like tier list and be like, all right, who am I forgetting? Active players. Al Horford played a long time and he did score decently. Okay. I try to talk myself into Al Horford.
Al Horford was 12, so he wasn't that far away.
That was close, man. All right. There's no Heat players that are like, that have been playing a long time. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. There is a Heat player. No, you said there wasn't a perennial all-star, so I definitely know it's not Udonis Haslem. That's not my guess. I'm sure. I'm sure that he's no. I know. I'm just saying that's not my guess. That's not my guess. But I'm saying active players that have played a long time.
Whether it's a guess doesn't matter anymore.
God.
I can let you go until you're done, and then I can just tell you the last three. But
Marc Gasol.
No.
Mike Conley.
No.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those segments where I'm going to get clowned because I should have known.
Think California, since it doesn't matter for the point anymore. The last 3 players all play in California right now.
Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
Number Paul 6. George.
Number 10 is Paul George, yes.
Son of a explicit. I should not have missed that. Oh, is it Klay Thompson? Is Klay Thompson?
Klay Thompson, number 7. And he's got the 10.
Oh, that is so tough. Thank God that you made it 6 as I get at least 1 point. Oh.
7. You got 7, Mike.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah, funny enough, you got to 7 and then just started missing everything.
I started thinking of guys. Here's where I thought. I wasn't thinking guys that have – I thought long-term instead of guys who have scored a lot in maybe less than 10 years or whatever, like Klay.
Yeah, weirdly, it happened that way. You just got to remember that. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that comes down to thinking of how often they make the playoffs and how many games have they played. And the Warriors, if you're going to the finals every year for 5 straight years, Klay Thompson played a lot of playoff games.
Yeah, that was a fun one, man. I appreciate
it. He scored made a lot of threes.
That's a really fun list. We'll post that list on Twitter for the listeners to see it in full order. Man, that was fun. What a fun episode! Because the playoffs. Speaking of fun, it's been a long week. I did want to end out with this before we officially kick it out. 2 things. One, we will have additional playoff basketball in Philadelphia. They are going back to Philly for Game 5. Time to be determined, I believe, because I don't think they were expecting that to happen tonight.
I believe it's already scheduled 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay, so then sweet. It's already going to be in that slate that's on Wednesday. And then lastly, of course, recording on a Monday here, Memorial Day. Just wanted to personally give a thank you and an appreciation to obviously all of the families and all of the people that have risked their lives for the great country that Josh and I both reside in and ever so are passionate to live here. We just want to thank you for your sacrifice. I want to thank you and I want to make sure that we at least get this in here. I wanted to finish it at the beginning, but we had to roll right in. But thank you to everyone who at any point has either risked their time or life or effort towards sacrificing their time for freedom.
Thank you, everyone, on Memorial Day, like Trevor said, to reiterate that. This has been another week with the 2 Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
I'm Trevor.
And we will see you soon.